Hello students, today we shall take up the recitation, explanation, rhyme scheme and poetic devices from the poem Wind of your class 9 NCERT book Beehive. This poem was originally written by Subramanya Bharati, who was a Tamil writer, poet, journalist and a social reformer. Well, he was also an Indian independence activist. Now, this poem has been translated into English by A.K. Ramanujan. A.K. Ramanujan was an Indian poet and scholar of Indian literature who wrote in both English and Kannada. He was a poet, scholar, professor, translator, and a playwright. A playwright is a person who writes plays. Well, you all know this is my favorite part, interpretation of the title. So let us interpret the title Wind. Well, when I saw the title, I observed something. There is no the here, okay? The definite article the is not here. The poet does not say the wind, but he just says wind. So according to me, this signifies different facets of wind. For instance, wind can be destructive if it takes the shape of a storm, and on the other hand, it can be soothing and pleasant too. So this was my interpretation, children. What is yours? Now let me introduce you to the poem. The poem Wind portrays the power of wind. According to the poet, wind has the potential of being both a destroyer and a creator. The poet has personified wind. He talks to the wind, and through it he has tried to highlight both the aspects of nature, that is, constructive as well as destructive. Now, before I take up each line, okay, and its explanation simultaneously, let me just recite the whole poem to you first. Wind, come softly. Don't break the shutters of the windows. Don't scatter the papers. Don't throw down the books on the shelf. There, look what you did. You threw them all down. You tore the pages of the books. You brought rain again. You are very clever at poking fun at weaklings. Frail crumbling houses, crumbling doors, crumbling rafters, crumbling wood, crumbling bodies, crumbling lives, crumbling hearts. The wind god winnows and crushes them all. He won't do what you tell him. So come, let's build strong homes. Let's joint the doors firmly. Practice to firm the body. Make the heart steadfast. Do this, and the wind will be friends with us. The wind blows out weak fires. He makes strong fires roar and flourish. His friendship is good. We praise him every day. Okay? So this was the complete recitation. Now I will be taking up each line and its explanation simultaneously. Okay? Now the first line. Wind come softly. Don't break the shutters of the windows. Don't scatter the papers. Don't throw down the books on the shelf. Okay? So in the first line, what is the poet doing? The poet addresses the wind and asks the wind to blow gently, softly. He further says that blow in a manner that you do not break the shutters of the windows, you do not scatter the papers or throw the books down on the shelf. But in the very next line, what do we observe? We see that wind does not listen to the poet and behaves just like a naughty child. Okay, when the poet says, there, look what you did. In spite of my telling you, you did this. You threw them all down. Okay, so what happens when you tell something to a naughty child? Don't do this. Do you think he will stop doing it? No, he will continue doing it. He will just do the opposite of what you ask him to. So similarly here we can very well say that wind is behaving like that naughty child. Okay. In the next three lines we observe how wind tears the pages of the books, brings heavy rain by blowing heavily. The poet addresses the wind. Okay. He says, you are clever at poking fun of weaklings. Now here, children, the poet believes that the wind, by destroying the weak things, seems to mock at their frailty and fragility. Okay. In the fifth line, please observe that you refers to wind and them refers to the books on the shelf. Now, in these lines, you can see, okay, you see these repetition of these words don't, and you. Okay, so what is this? This is anaphora. Okay, what is anaphora, children? In anaphora, what happens in anaphora? And in anaphora, the repetition of a word or phrase is done at the beginning of successive clauses. Okay, so the poetic device that has been used in these lines is anaphora. Frail crumbling houses, crumbling doors, crumbling rafters, crumbling wood, crumbling bodies, crumbling lives, crumbling hearts. The wind god winnows and crushes them all. Now we see repetition of the word crumbling here. So repetition is another poetic device that has been used here by the poet. Now, why is this technique adopted by the poets, okay, or authors in their respective poetry or prose pieces, children? Repetition of a particular word or a phrase is basically done in order to lay emphasis or stress for purposes such as drawing attention of the reader to a particular theme. So let us see what is the purpose of the poet here. The word crumbling, what does it mean? The word crumbling means falling, okay? Falling apart. The poet describes this havoc caused by the ferocious, fierce wind. The wind destroys houses, doors, rafters, wood, etc. Now, all these inanimate things crumble. Why do they crumble? Because they are weak and therefore they cannot stand the fury of this destructive wind. So, basically, the purpose of this repetition is that the poet wants to lay emphasis on the fact that everything here crumbles in the face of a strong wind. The poet emphasizes upon the destruction that has been caused by the wind. So, is this, I hope this is clear. And in the last line it says, the wind god winnows and crushes them all. Okay. Crumbling lives, crumbling hearts. Okay. Crumbling lives and crumbling hearts refers to the lives that are lost when the wind wreaks its havoc. Okay. Crumbling hearts means that a weak person, will break down in adverse times. Okay. So initially he talks of inanimate things and then he says crumbling lives and crumbling hearts. In the next line, the poet calls wind the god and says that the wind god winnows and crushes them all. He says, just like we winnow the wheat to separate the grain from chaff, the wind god separates the strong people from the weak ones, and with his immense power, he crushes the weak ones. Now the poet says, he won't do what you tell him. So come, let's build strong homes. Let's joint the doors firmly, practice to firm the body. So he here refers to the wind god, children. The poet says that the wind retaliates just like a raging youth who is ready to destroy everything as he does not listen to anyone. So even when people plead, wind god does not pay any heed. So it becomes necessary. So now when wind is not listening to us, what resort do we have? Okay. So what do we do? So it becomes necessary that people construct strong homes which do not crumble down in the wake of fierce wind. And the poet further says that we should close the door, we should close the doors firmly to face the fury of the wind. Okay. When he says that people must practice and firm their bodies, he basically is trying to say and emphasize upon the physical strength, the necessity of being strong physically. So practice to firm the body basically means that one should be physically strong. Make the heart steadfast. Do this, and the wind will be friends with us. The wind blows out weak fires. He makes strong fires roar and flourish. His friendship is good. We praise him every day. So this is the last part of the poem. Now, the word steadfast means unwavering. And so here in this line, in the previous line, we said that, physical strength is important. So here, basically, we have to strengthen our hearts too. So we have to be physically as well as mentally strong. Okay. So this means we should be able to face the challenges and overcome the obstacles of our lives. So we must equip ourselves with physical and mental strength, grit and determination, so that we stay calm, composed, unruffled, and unharmed in difficult times. If we are able to strengthen ourselves both physically and mentally, then what will happen according to the poet? According to the poet, wind will be our friend. So why will this happen? This will happen because wind blows. In the next line he says, the wind blows out only the weak fires. So the poet firmly believes that if we befriend the wind, it will be good for us. And then if you see, his friendship is good. He says his friendship is good. We praise him every day. So him refers to the wind god. So wind god has tremendous power. So we must pacify and keep the god pleased so that we escape his fury, we escape his wrath. Okay. So please see, there is symbolism here. Wind is a symbol. Okay. Wind is a symbol that refers to the challenges, to the adversities in our lives. Okay. And then there are these phrases, strong fires and weak fires. Okay. Now we also observe these symbols, strong fires and weak fires, that refer to strong, courageous, focused people with indomitable spirit and weak people with no courage or willpower, respectively. Okay. So please remember that here the next poetic device which I have discussed with you is that of symbolism. Okay. I am hopeful that you all understood the poem. Now let us quickly recapitulate the poetic devices that have been used in the poem. Personification is there, symbolism, anaphora, repetition. Okay. And this poem has been written in free verse. What do you mean by free verse? That basically there is no rhyme scheme of the poem. Okay. There is no set rhyme scheme, as the poem has therefore been, we can say it has been written in free verse. Now let us quickly recapitulate the poetic devices. Wind has been personified by the poet. Now what is personification, children? In personification, we give human-like characteristics to something that is not human. Okay. Now, for instance, when the poet talks to the wind and gives instructions to the wind, what is he doing? He is treating wind like a human being. Now, on various occasions, students say that only the inanimate objects. No, it is only something which is non-human. Okay. Anything. It can be a pen, it can be a mobile phone, it can be your laptop, and students write uh, uh, beautiful poems on these. They pick up things, they personify them and write beautiful poems. So this is one activity that even you can take up. Okay. Then symbolism, we just discussed in the previous slide. Okay. Wind is also a symbol here. Anaphora is also used here, and which is basically the repetition of a word or a phrase at the beginning of successive clauses. And the poet has used this anaphora in lines 2, 3, 4 and in lines 6, 7 and 8. Okay. Then we have repetition. The repeated use of the word crumbling has been done by the poet in order to emphasize upon the destruction that has been caused by the wind. Okay. So that was all for today. I hope you understood the poem and you understood all the poetic devices. Thank you for watching.